Okay, thanks very much. That's
It's only
clarified.
until October.
Oh, good to clarify it, Councillor Quacks, because we kind of presume that's clear. Good to make sure everyone utterly understands that's what's being
Oh,
proposed.
I'm a bit slow.
Yeah, no, good on you. Councillor Watson.
Are we talking to the motion now, Madam Chair?
I think it feels like we've dealt with questions. Let's talk to the motion. Yep,
Okay.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you. I think it was local board chair Lisa White who said that, looking at the report, this was sort of a finely balanced choice here, but I'd have to say that after listening to Brett, I feel a little more comfortable with the option that's been moved by Councillor Clow here, notwithstanding that there's a lot of water to flow under the bridge in the interim. I guess as one of the local councillors for this area, my concern is really is one that's been pretty well elucidated by the earliest presenters in terms of the community needs. So while we have the two potential options here, it's an overall outcome for the community that's certainly to our fore, and specifically I think as it goes to four areas, and I hope these areas maybe help people decide their choice. One, in terms of the local employment, how much employment's actually going to be provided. I don't think we can just keep going on filling in areas that were set aside for employment with more and more houses. And if there is any area in the whole of Auckland that can afford to cut a little slack in terms of new dwellings, it's around here. I mean, it's 7,620 dwellings there happening and to happen in the future, not to mention the people that already live in West Harbour. So that's a massive number of people. So that's the first one, employment. The second one was that the development has to be complementary to the existing residential areas, and I think the graphics we saw there, can't always go on graphics, but they again are reassuring in terms of that. The third one is really the one that hasn't been openly put on the table, but it's certainly been alluded to, and that's community facilities. So something that's going to come out of this for the community that otherwise wouldn't happen. We've heard with the ACPL option that it will be business as normal, and we'd go through the rather tortuous and convoluted process of trying to get things through the plans, and we know in a constrained financial environment that's going to be difficult. So there's got to be tangible benefits here that wouldn't otherwise occur. And finally, bring the local community along with us, because clearly they have got concerns, not least of which with things like transport. So there is a job to be done to really persuade and inform the existing community. And in that respect, I welcome the addition in up there that seeks to consult with the Upper Harbour Local Board and the local community organisations such as Gavin's that presented here today, and genuinely bring them along with you. So I think if those things can be addressed, then this sort of window of opportunity, I think it was referred to, is one that's really well worth exploring. And that goes to employment too. I know, Brett, you mentioned, I think, the 430 jobs. If there's an educational element to that, well, it's maybe not jobs, but it is additional people who are going there essentially for employment-related activity. So I guess finally then the other issue that again has been alluded to is the financial repercussions of this. While it's great to see the benefit to the wider Auckland economy, we really want to see the financial benefit to council specifically. So we take that, the wonderful opportunity, but I guess people will want to be reassured that there's council's coming on the right side of the ledger on this one, and that's also to be, I guess, confirmed. So finally, Madam Chair, then I think this is something that provides an end point, October 31st. It does, on the face of it, seem to present some real opportunities, and I think if it can be worked along with the local community, there's a chance to do something here that's special and that should be happening across Auckland, and that can have a beneficial financial outcome to council. There's certainly all the things I'll be looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an unusual
situation, and I'm surprised that an arrangement hasn't been worked out. Clearly this council is under quite a lot of pressure from the government and the public to do something about housing. And so here is an opportunity to actually do something about housing in an area that's eminently suitable for that sort of activity. What I find interesting is that the two proposals are not that far apart. One has got 10 hectares for residential development and 10 hectares for screen industrial precinct, and the other one is 14 hectares for residential development and 6 hectares for an employment hub. In regard to film, unlike housing, there's not a huge amount of pressure on this council to get involved and do something about film. And I just wonder about our involvement in that particular field. Currently, film activity is going on across Auckland, and this, I guess, is due to decisions made by the people involved. Now, we are told that they'll all come and join in one facility, and that's a good thing, and it sounds good to me, but I'm not too sure whether that can be guaranteed. But I certainly believe that our prime objective here should be to carry on with the residential housing development that's underway in that area. However, it doesn't seem beyond the realms of possibility that the employment hub could be tailor-made for film if there is a genuine, real demand for film in that particular area. So it seems to me that while I'll be supporting the residential housing approach, it seems that the 6 hectare employment hub could conceivably be also available for film, but I guess the gentleman here may have some answers on that.
Yeah, so we obviously have discussed that, and what has been indicated is that the minimum needed for a film campus was 8 hectares, which by the time you had adequate buffer area between it and the residential were 10. The second issue which the ACPL board had with the proposal as it has appeared to date was around the commercial side of it. I mean, effectively, as the report outlines, the ACPL board didn't consider the ratepayers were getting a reasonable enough return out of the land. So there were those two issues. Now, maybe that gets addressed in the next round.
Can I ask through you, Madam Chair, in terms of the employment hub, Mr O'Reilly has expressions of interest from film interest. Does ACPL have expressions of interest from other businesses or industries that want to be involved in the employment hub area?
Well, both ourselves and HLC have had parties approach. We just get a trickle of parties all the time.
Yeah.
The problem we've had, frankly, Councillor, is until, and from our own credibility, we have to manage this as well, until you've got a definite proposal, you can't really justify the expenditure of knocking up the level of detail required to present something firm, and also you're sort of floating around asking people if they're interested in something that's not specific enough. So we would be confident that the 6 hectares over time would be utilised by, there would be demand in the suitable niche of businesses, but we haven't got a list of people that are sort of firmly interested.
Just one final point. Would it be feasible for ACPL to begin a housing development, yet leave room for tangible proposals to be put forward by the film industry, because I guess the film industry thing is not really a done deal, is it? This is not certain, and so would it be possible for ACPL to proceed with the housing development, leaving contingent space for a film campus if that was to become a reality or realistic?
Yes, so Council, we've obviously wrestled with that for quite a while. And the way I would put that is a last resort, and the reason I say that is because the master plan and design for the two options are quite different. In both ACPL's view and in the strong view of Hobsonville Land Company, there is a much better design with one option than the other. Second thing, that it is in practice very difficult to do a development when you're completely uncertain what is going to be happening in the major block next door, as you can all imagine. It has a major impact potentially on both value and on people being willing to make a commitment for obvious reasons. So that's the practical problems. That's why we don't really want to go there unless something, that's option Z for us, really.
Just to add to that, through the chair, because we want certainty for the screen sector and for the investors that have demonstrated interest to date, that's why we have proposed the date of the 31st of October, because it means we can move quickly to determine whether this is a goer or not. I think also we have a number of people in the film sector who are keen to move there, but they're looking for a quick decision as well. They're looking for certainty in that process. So that was behind our proposal to establish this deadline of October 31st, so we can take advantage of the investor interest that we have today. We can take advantage of the industry interest we have today, and get certainty around the future use of this land as quickly as possible by presenting options to council or to the development committee at its November meeting, hence the October 31st deadline.
Can I just ask one more question through you, Madam Chair? If the film sector is so keen, why do we have to wait till 31st of October? Couldn't there be some compromise around the timeline so that ACPL could live with a certain postponement, but not as long as up till 31st of October?
I think, given the number of parties that have expressed interest and given the need to, we want to be able to come back to this committee with a signed, term sheet around this, that will all require some significant time. So we actually think the time frame to 31st of October is, we're going to be working hard with the Auckland Investment Office.
I take your point, but it kind of undermines the case a bit to say you're going to have to spend a lot of time rounding up these film people to agree to. You see what I mean?
I think
Through the chair, I think now that we're also we've had interest around leasehold and freehold ownership of this by investors of a film studio process. That adds a degree of complexity, but I can assure the council we're trying to get this resolved as quickly as possible, so we give council, the community, and the ratepayer and the film sector certainty around the future, and we think that's a realistic time.
we certainly don't want to skimp on any due diligence issues, and I think there's been a long history on Hobsonville. These things take time. I think it took us 7 years to change the metropolitan urban limits so that we could get housing in this area. I think waiting another few months isn't going to, kill anyone in this case. We're used to waiting in this area and battling long and hard.